What's up, everyone? It's the Autismo Dynamite back for another video. How are you guys doing? Hope you guys are doing alright. And, yep, I'm here to be talking about the, one of the two fights I experienced, yesterday, from which I'm recording this video. Between the two of them, I'm obviously, as you've seen from the title, going to be talking about Ryan Garcia's victory over Mario Barrios. I'm going to be covering Lee Wood's victory over Josh Warrington in a separate video later down the line. But for now, we're going to be, I want to talk about Ryan Garcia's victory over Rolly Romero, which, to be honest, I didn't think his victory was outside the realm of probability, but I feel like when you look at his two losses against Tank Davis and Romero, honestly thought going into it, if Barrios could hurt Garcia, honestly didn't really feel like, I felt like Garcia would probably just do the same thing as he did in those two fights I mentioned, which is just become gun shy and not really know what to do. Although, to be fair, within that logic, I did also forget that Mario Barrios isn't really the biggest puncher in the world. Like, he certainly does have some good knockouts on his record, and even in fights where he didn't get the knockout, he managed to score some good knockdowns. But if I'm being honest, I feel like it was less of him having power and more of a result of either volume or his opponents being off guard when the knockdown happened. But also going into the fight, I felt like with two different blueprints as to neutralize Garcia's left hook, I feel like Barrios also pretty much knew that if he could just neutralize it, he'd pretty much have it in the bag. And yeah, boy, were we all wrong, because Garcia definitely showed us that he is much more than a one-trick pony. We going into that fight, we all thought he just had the left hook, and no, it was the right hand that guiding him to victory all night long. Or his hand speed. Don't get me wrong, there's still some good left hooks, but his hand speed was the real difference in getting him the victory. And hopefully, he doesn't fail for PEDs this time round. But nevertheless, so now that with this victory, what is next for Garcia? And if I'm going to be honest, I'd say I can really only think of two different directions for him. And I wanted to quickly give my thoughts on which direction I think he should go in. First direction, Conor Benn, who is obviously ranked as the #1 contender for the WBC welterweight belt, and he was talked to have said that he was going to fight the winner between Barrios and Garcia. And to be fair, I think it would actually be a really interesting fight, considering that both men are coming off easily the best performances of their careers and best wins of their careers. Eubank Jr. as well as Mario Barrios. And I think it would actually massively sell out, considering both men's draws in both the UK and the US. My only concern right now, I'd say, would probably be the fact that with Conor Benn recently joining Zuffa Boxing, which, I mean, I don't exactly know. I think I'm thinking more of the fact that Dana White's trying to invent a completely new belt, or just try and create just one belt for boxing instead of 4 separate belts. So I think simply just based on that basis, I don't really know whether or not Conor Benn will still get the fight, but if he does, I'd be really interested in seeing it happening, and it would be a very intriguing fight. Um, but yeah, if he doesn't fight Conor Benn, there's really only one other option I think he can really go to from here, which is Unify, because because outside Conor Benn, there's not really any contenders in the division, but I think really has much draw power. The only other person who I can think of who could possibly be a decent contender would probably be Jack Catterall. However, um, I feel like that fight probably wouldn't happen considering as I feel like Jack Catterall is one of those guys who's in the like who needs me club where it's more like he's basically kind of like more of like a high risk low reward fight. Like he's a very skilled fighter, but he doesn't really have the best draw power in the world. So yeah, I don't really feel like Garcia would go for him. See, I think that really leaves him with one other option, which is unifying. So if we look at the three current world champions at welterweight, we've got Rolly Romero, who's the WBA. We've got Lewis Crocker, who's the IBF, and we got Devin Haney, who's the WBO. Now, first off, I think if he's just looking for an easy victory to become unified champion, I think his best option will probably be Lewis Crocker, who I think is definitely by far the worst champion in the division. Like, regardless of whether or not he thought he won or lost the Paddy Donovan fight, the second one I'm referring to, you look at his skills, and personally, I just don't really feel like he's gonna be good. He's good enough to fight the top dogs of the welterweight division, which I wouldn't say is currently the best division right now, but regardless, I think yeah, that would probably just be a pretty easy fight for Garcia. I think his hand speed would be way too much for Crocker. So yeah, if it's an easy victory that Garcia wants, I'd say Lewis Crocker. On the other hand, though, outside Lewis Crocker, the other two people we haven't mentioned are rematches: Rolly Romero and Devin Haney. So personally, I think between the two of them, Sorry, I'm just trying to make sure I don't wake up my parents. Between the two of them, I personally would think Rudy Romero would probably be the be the one that for Garcia would be more of a revenge taking, because outside of like since he's at welterweight now, he's probably not going to be able to get his revenge against Tank Davis. So I think he could probably set his sights on the other boxer who holds a win over him, which is obviously Rudy Romero. Do I think that fight will happen though? Most likely not. Simply just because I feel like because of how boring their first fight was, I don't really know how much revenue the second fight would get. So yeah, I don't really think that fight would happen. So for me, I think the most logical solution, and I think the option that I really want to go with him to go with, which I've mentioned in multiple videos now, the rematch with Devin Haney. Like that, because I think at this point there is going to be a lot of baggage going into this. Well, maybe not bag. What's the right word? There's a lot of stakes going into this rematch. We've had 6 amateur fights between them, 3 apiece. We have besides the story leading into the first fight was insane, considering that you had Garcia who acted like a complete nutcase going into the fight to the point where he was a massive underdog. And a lot of people were even concerned on whether or not he was in the right shape or right state of mind to do it, especially considering he missed weight by £3. So, and then you get to the fight, and it was certainly one of the most entertaining fights of the modern era. Well, maybe not one of the most entertaining, but it was certainly one of the most interesting, considering what we thought of going into it. And if I'm being honest, it's probably the only time I've ever been. Well, maybe besides the Lomachenko fight, probably the only time I've ever been entertained watching a Devin Haney fight. And obviously, you then had the 3 knockdowns, and then you had the upset loss, and so basically we've after the first fight, we've basically established a rivalry between the two of them, and now it's intensified with the drug fails. So then obviously they were trying to set up a rematch back in May last year with the Times Square card, but obviously, sadly, Garcia did lose to Romero, so instead Haney would move on to fight Brian Norman Jr. for the WBO welterweight title, which he won. And now we have Garcia, who's become WBC champion. I think there is a lot of this. If they had the second fight, I think it would probably. The build up would be immense, considering how much. I don't honestly think that there's been more of a storyline building up to a rematch than these two. The lore in this fight is like riveting, and probably more deeper than like House of the Dragons or Game of Thrones or like anything. I think, I think I've pretty much made my point. I think Ryan Garcia, Devin Haney rematch, I think is definitely what Baru Garcia should go down. It would be immense, especially considering that unlike the first fight, we now have 2 world champions going into this. We have an undefeated 3-division world champion against a now turned world champion who has been on the ropes a couple times throughout his career, with the Davis loss, the drug fails, the Romero loss, but now that he's become a world champion, I think this rematch could even actually outdo the first fight in pay-per-view buys. So yeah, I think I really hope we do get a rematch. Sorry, I'm just really hoping I'm not waking up my parents. So yeah, that's definitely my pick. I think that's definitely the route that Garcia should go down. Devin Haney rematch. And hopefully Devin Haney will be up to it, because obviously, like, regardless of what on whether or not regardless of the drugs, I did feel like Haney's performance was still pretty disappointing in that, considering that fighters like Davis and especially Rolly Romero, of all people, I feel like managed to deal with his left hook much better. I'm surprised that Haney wasn't able to deal with it. But look, the rematch I think would definitely live up to the hype. I think it would be immense. So yeah, I'm kind of going around in circles at this point, so I'm probably just gonna stop the video. But congratulations, Garcia. I thought you did great, and yeah, I'll see you guys another time, and hopefully I'll look forward to seeing you guys in more live streams. Bye.